Bienvenidos! Hey, my name is Jedley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We are beaming out to you in the entire universe from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. You know, here at Reading with Your Kids, I like to think that every episode of the podcast is like a new adventure, filled with great stories, amazing authors, and powerful reminders of how reading together helps families grow closer. We're so honored that you're joining us in this mission, and we hope that you'll help us grow the mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, YouTube, Audible. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Hopefully this episode is going to give you and your kids lots of artistic inspiration. First up, Matt Ross is here. He is the founder and CEO of One River School, a really innovative art school. And later in the show, acclaimed artist Akeem S. Roberts is here to celebrate his middle grade graphic novel series, The Class Pet Ghost Detective. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. Hey, this is a message for all the authors that are listening. You know, you worked hard on your book. You spent months, maybe years, writing, revising, dreaming, and believing. You created characters, solved problems, overcame doubts, and brought a story into the world that only you could tell. Now it's time to help readers discover it. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program is created to celebrate outstanding children's books and to help authors reach more families. When a book earns our seal of approval, we don't stop with an award certificate. We review the book, feature it on the podcast, share it across social media, and help introduce it to parents, teachers, librarians, and caregivers who are looking for great books to share with kids. Because your story matters. And the families who need your story deserve a chance to find it. Please visit readingwithyourkids.com and click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to learn more. That's readingwithyourkids.com. Let your book find the readers it was written for. Join us right now from the beautiful state of New Jersey. Our guest is here today to celebrate One River School. It's a fantastic art school. He is the founder and CEO. Please welcome to the show, Matt Ross. Matt, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Delighted to have you on One River School. I'm really intrigued. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so back in 2010, I left a role where I was the CEO of a company called the School of Rock, and I had built this brand nationally and actually overseas as well into the dominant music education business in America. And it really was just a labor of love. And shortly after I left, I said, how come there are no cool art schools in my neighborhood? And naturally, that was an invitation to start doing research. And I realized that really no one was doing something that I thought was compelling and fun and really taught through the lens of living artists. I wanted to celebrate the art of today. If I asked you, can you name three living artists? You might say no. And that saddened me. And I went through that exercise. I was asking people. I just thought it was sad that we didn't honor visual artists. And so we wrote our own curriculum. We started in Englewood, New Jersey in the fall of 2012. And today we're 15 locations in 6 states. And we're expanding. So right now we're getting a lot of interest from new franchisees who want to open a school in their neighborhood. We created a cool franchise program, and we want to bring it to everyone across America.
Well, awesome. Well, I could have named 3 artists but they would have been kids artists, illustrating kids books.
There you go.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. And now we're living this time of AI where everybody's worried about AI taking over their jobs. There's a lot of debate about AI and art and everything, but I'm a lot more optimistic than most people are. I think AI is going to give us more opportunities. It's certainly going to give us opportunities to be more creative, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. And by the way, I'm glad to hear that because I'm optimistic as well. If you look at how we've evolved as a humanity, what if I told you, it was basically the Industrial Revolution was not that long ago. You know what I mean? And we didn't have locomotives in America 200 years ago. So it's just like in the moment, things feel scary when it's new, different, and there's uncertainty around it. But I do think to your point though, I think having creative skills is sort of an X factor in life because what makes us different from machines is our ability to communicate and our ability to think creatively and do creative things. And that makes us different from other animals on the planet, other species. I saw something the other day that said we share like 94% of the same DNA with a banana. Is that crazy?
I think I've seen that too, yeah.
Think about that.
Yep.
But I don't think a banana could do this Moreau painting, this thing behind me, I just don't think so. So there's something soulful about making art and music and being creative.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, one of the reasons I'm optimistic is we have a choice. We can worry ourselves or we can go, you know what? This is probably going to work out because like everything else has worked out. Yeah,
there's a saying. Do you know a guy named Stephen Covey?
I think
he wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And, it served me so well in my adult life because I used to obsess and worry and obsess. And the first one is, there's a bunch. The end depends upon the beginning. The best way to be understood is to be understanding. One that I love is focus on the things that concern you and the things that you control. Mm-hmm. And the truth is I don't control where the world is going relative to AI, but I can focus on ways in which I could adapt, teach my kids to adapt and to learn and to extract the value out of these things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really what life's about, adapting to the changing environment around you and optimizing your ability to be happy, healthy, and successful.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about One River School. What is different about the One River experience than the kids who are at a typical after-school program gluing kind of cotton balls onto
I'm going to give you 4 or 5 principles that makes us different. Number 1, on the basic engagement side, you could start today. Most art schools, if not every one of them, are semester-based. So let's say you have a whim and you're just thinking, I'm intrigued by this. I'd like to get going. We wrote a program that's project-based, which allows for people to literally sign up and start at any point in time. You don't have to wait for the next semester. And then every month, the projects change. So we wrote our own curriculum. We're not teaching about Van Gogh through a book. Every lesson plan is written by us. We've written the lesson plans to focus on celebrating the art of today. As I say, teaching through the lens of living artists to create context and perspective for the last 50 years of art. So if I said to you, who's the greatest artist of all time? You might go Monet or Van Gogh or Picasso. That's all great. But who are the artists today that are working amongst us today who were influenced by those folks? and they're having museum shows and they're showing in galleries. We can engage with these people. We could celebrate them. It's like going to see a concert of a band or a musician that's playing today, as opposed to just thinking what they sounded like 300 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's also very communal and very social. We built a best-in-class space that doesn't feel babyish or cutesy. It feels organic and interesting and motivating. So I think on so many levels, it's aspirational, focused on really trying to be current and fun and cool and compelling, taught by world-class educators, based upon a curriculum and method that we wrote ourselves.
Okay. All right.
And there's no long-term commitment. If you do 1 month and you don't like it, you could leave. Mm-hmm. And so trying it is really easy, and it's our job to hopefully make the experience amazing. The average student spends over a year with us, and mm-hmm. that's amazing considering someone might try, and 3 months later they might go, hey, you guys were great, but art making, I want to go do tennis now. Mm-hmm. And we're like, cool, thank you for trying, come back. We've got summer camps, by the way, the best summer camps in America, the most compelling creative camps. I take such pride in it, and that's a whole nother thing. But I do think that, like, you know, art businesses are not for the faint of heart. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to run these creative, art-centric businesses. So we had to be really good on hospitality service, great student and customer experience, and really keeping it fun, which is really, I think, where it all begins.
Yeah. One of the things about that I noticed about sports programs, I was an athlete growing up, and
what did you play? What was your thing?
Played soccer.
Cool.
Played soccer in high school and college, and a lot of fun. That was super, super competitive, and you know, a lot of kids who wanted to play just couldn't keep up, and you know, felt bad and dropped out and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. What's different about art? You know, there's I in terms of visual art, I'm useless. I consider myself useless. I can play with Canva and do some things, but if I were still a kid and were able to come to your school with no kind of abilities at all, is it something I'm going to get something out of it?
Yeah. So here's the blessing. If you wanted to start off playing piano, would you expect to be great right away?
No.
Right. But everyone thinks you should be a born artist and just make it happen. So we run a real school. It's educational, but we're able to get people to let their guard down, work in a peer group where they see people who are just like them at different stages of their growth curve. And the goal for us is to build trust with these students, get a sense of where they are, and what feels like some small wins along the way. When I was first playing guitar, just forming a few basic chords. 3 chords allowed me to play 10,000 songs. Mm-hmm. And now I could play and sing a Neil Young song with 3 chords, or an Allman Brothers song, or a Beatles song. And so what happened and what I think we do really nicely, is we demystify it by not being too technical too soon, too rigid. We try and get you moving so you start to feel like there's a couple wins along the way. Because you know the way the human brain works. If you really grind at something and there's no positive sort of feedback and you don't feel like you're making any progress, most of the times we go, I'm stopping. It's not for me. That's normal biochemistry. Mm-hmm. So what I know is I study human behavior. I'm a really good marketing guy, really good on consumer behavior. And I've known along the way, I said to you earlier, it's about having fun first. Mm. So if we can sort of get you to be less self-critical, open up. And by the way, this goes for adults too. 25% of our students are adults, and they're more difficult on themselves than the kids. You know, kids are in school every day. They're always learning and always going, I don't know how to pronounce that word in Spanish yet. And, you know, but adults, when they try, you should see the look on their face. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh, I hate this. I'm no good. And we go, all right, calm down. Let it go. We're going to get a couple wins under your belt, and here's why. Try this. You're making the mark this way. Try this way. So we have to break things down to the least common denominator originally. 3 chords. Start to get the brain feeling, okay, I had a little growth there. Next time I'm going to play 2 new chords and I've got 5,000 new songs that I could play.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense to you. It's the psychology of humanity. It's not, we're going to blow you away in 3 weeks with our curriculum. No, we're going to get you on the ski slopes, making a few simple turns and getting the fear out of the way. Have you ever skied?
I have.
Right. So you know what I'm saying? I remember going back to when I skied and I didn't know how I would do it. And then you get down the hill a couple times without falling and you look up at that mountain, you go, oh my God, I did that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happens in the art studio. You can't kill yourself on the art studio. You can kill yourself on the ski slope. But in some ways, we are all so self-critical that we feel like we should be experts right away at everything. And as soon as you let your guard down and realize there's some time that goes into getting really good, you become less self-critical.
Yeah. How can we as parents kind of instill that in our kids, if not only in art, but in everything, and helping our kids understand, hey, you're not great yet?
Well, I think there's 2 things to this. Number one, it's about play, right? And what we do, particularly when our kids are really young, we celebrate the play, we celebrate the play. Then when they kind of turn 13, 14, it's like, all hands on deck. I've got to prepare them for college now. I've got to prepare them for vocational path. And God forbid you're a struggling artist. You're not doing art anymore. You're not doing music. You're going to take a coding class and you're going to double down on your math. I think what we can do first and foremost is realize that the journey of life, to be a whole human, you need to always be playing from the time you're a child to the time you die. And we need to nurture that creative, playful side in our kids, while we also advocate for them to get really good in the essentials that we would describe STEM. You know, the fight between STEAM and STEM, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, why is this a fight? Why is it even a question that having abstract, creative problem-solving skills is a bad thing? So I may not have answered the question directly, but I do think first and foremost is that if we could treat the whole body, the whole human, as our kids become preteens, teens, and older, and realize that there's a time and place for all of us to just continue to enjoy life and be better at what we do, to get off the computer for a minute, to have a moment to yourself where you're creating and thinking in a different way. I think it just makes for a more whole life. And I think that makes you better as a professional, better as a person. And I think inevitably what we're also finding nowadays, more and more people are finding vocational and career opportunities using creative skills, from web design to graphic design to game design to UX design to so many design functions, mobile design, and so many jobs today that require us to have these kind of sensibility. So I think what you're seeing is over time, the benefits you get from being creative will support your professional ambition. Well, for a lot of people, can support their professional ambitions as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know I was hired to work at a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities while I was trying to make it as a professional clown and magician. And I had zero experience working with these kids. And it was just being able to look past what people were seeing them being able to do to think, why not try this? And, come up with these insane ideas that all worked.
So I'm going to tell you a story. You may not know this. I have a son with severe autism. He's 30 years old, nonverbal, uber complicated. My son loves music. We would take him to School of Rock shows, and he'd be jumping up and down like he was at CBGB's Punk Rock Club, and he's tapping all the time. But if I try and have a structured class for him, it's a little bit hard. So we play some games where I'll tap out something and I'll look at him and he'll just go, and he'll look at me so cute. He's 30, by the way. But you know what? See the smile on his face.
Yeah.
And we're engaging, and he's having a moment that's social. And in his world, it's creative. By the way, he also shoots the basketball beautifully in a way in which you would never believe that a severely autistic kid, like perfect form as he follows through. So like in all of us, there are these innate skills, and quite often they're suppressed because we've not brought them out in our kids, or we've stifled them and shut them down.
Yeah.
So, you're involved with children's books and stuff. I just wrote this book. I'm 65 years old. I had a book came out in January called Grow or Fold, Transform Yourself in Midlife and Beyond. And my goal was to share my journey and these learnings that I had at 50 years old to help people kind of reset themselves as they grow a little bit older and overcome challenges and stuff. And there's a chapter in there called Creative Growth is the X Factor. And, I think of growth in three ways, and it really applies to everyone. There's functional growth. What are the skills you need to be successful, healthy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Emotional growth. How do I build great depth of relationship with people? How do I manage my emotional swings and challenges? And that's stuff we have to work on. I'm sure you've had to work on. Every human has to work on those. But creative growth, this ability to challenge yourself to think in an abstract way and problem solve. So I know I'm going to sound like a broken record for your audience, but like we spend so much time on the functional growth.
Sure.
Do your Pilates, eat less carbs, get your sleep, all those things that drive health and wellness. Great. And things that help you with maybe skills for work or managing your finances. You got to do those things. But over here, there's this whole other thing. I ask people, when was the last time you took a class? And they go, uh-oh, I can't remember. Okay. Well, are there any classes you think you'd like to take that might help you? Oh, yeah, I'd love to take a class on woodworking or jewelry making. Or I'd love to take an animation class and just figure out it. I said, what's stopping you? Prioritization. So I know a lot of your work here on this podcast, and you do a great job, is for kids.
Thank you.
But there's this symbiotic relationship. We have to be really good with ourselves to be really good with our kids. And what I want to tell people is, if you continue to work on yourself, think about what's holding you back. Think about the ways in which you could tap into new skills or new growth. You just might activate another way to think about how to work with your kid or challenge your kid or coach them or guide them or activate new ideas for them. And reading with them is beautiful. For me, I wrote a book at 65, and it allowed my other son, to have greater context for the journey I was on. So now we have a better relationship, because that younger guy's 28 years old, and he looks at me through a different lens. He now understands my journey, as opposed to dad sort of chatting at him, where he's no longer listening, to like, gosh, that was really a road that I didn't know because I didn't share all those things. And so I just think all of us, we have to keep building new perspectives and new ways to evolve. Otherwise, if we're not growing, we're folding.
Yep.
Like a flower.
Absolutely. Such wisdom. And I'm really happy that you're sharing that with us. I think it's important. I know my beautiful wife retired after teaching for 34 years in the Boston Public Schools, and she she takes a couple of art classes.
Great.
And loves it and is phenomenal at it. And so, yes. So let's tell everybody a little bit about how they can get their kids involved or themselves involved with One River School.
So I want to tell you one thing before we do that. We have the largest teen art exhibition in America happening in June. 1,500 teenage artists will be showing their work in our spaces. We have world-class galleries. So when you make work, you also twice a year get to exhibit it in a real gallery. Anybody who is in our we'll call it trading areas. We're in 6 states: New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Illinois, Texas, Oregon. They can go to our website, oneriverschool.com. They will learn a lot about us. We've got these summer camps that may have just started in Dallas and Frisco, Texas, that are about to begin in the New York tri-state area. They're 1 week in duration. They're the perfect way to take a half-day, 1 week class to get your feet wet. And we do cool things like street art, graffiti, and other things. Just really, really cool stuff. Manga, anime, digital anime. So it's really become a prideful thing for me. And I think just kick our tires and reach out. I think you'll see how well we connect with parents, how we sort of demystify what this is about and make it easy to understand. A lot of people think if you don't know art, it's sort of awkward. You don't know what questions to ask. It feels too theoretical. We don't dumb it down, but we try to speak in common sense English language to describe the courses, what we do, what you'll learn, how it works, and why it's of benefit to people of all ages.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been really blessed with this podcast because I get to sit down with authors, with illustrators, and talk about their process. And I get to talk to the guys who, in addition to kids' books, are creating fine art that are in galleries and museums. And I get to say things like, hey, I went to this museum and there was this giant canvas and it was blue and I don't get it. You know, the only thing I thought is he conned someone. But they talk to me about it and help me understand. So I love that. Tell me, are you looking for other people to help you grow the school?
So it's a great question. We've got some investors who are reaching out. We've raised some capital, and we're in the process of beginning a plan to go from 15 to 50 units in the next 3 years.
Wow.
And then to double it thereafter. So I think anybody who is maybe thinking about their life right now and what they're doing and how their community might better by bringing a program like ours to their community, they should reach out to me, matt@oneriverschool.com. They could email me. And I honestly think that when we brought this to Evanston, Illinois, right outside Chicago, which is where Northwestern University is, people are like, wow, you're going to Evanston, Illinois. That's such a great place. I said, yeah, and they don't have anything like One River School there. When I was opening School of Rock locations everywhere, I can't tell you how many parents said to me, you saved my kid's life. Mm. And I said, oh my God, I taught them to play Led Zeppelin. What are you talking about? And then my journey of having an 8-year-old son who started there and wound up playing hundreds of shows by the time he was graduated at 18 years old, I saw what they meant. I saw it through our students nationally. I'm getting the same feedback from parents. They literally say, there's nothing like you. Your people are amazing. And we're so grateful because my son, daughter are growing. Or they're saying, I'm taking a class now because now I have a little more free time as my kids have gotten older. And I've got to get back in the studio. I did art when I was 17. Mm-hmm. And I remember how much I miss it.
Yeah. So the website to go to is oneriverschool.com?
oneriverschool.com.
We've had a really fun time speaking to the founder and CEO of One River School. Our guest has been Matt Ross. Hey, Matt, thanks so much for spending time with us.
Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Hey, my friends, I want to tell you about a coffee company I recently discovered that really lines up with the values we talk about right here at Reading with Your Kids. It's called Afrera Coffee Company, and they're doing things the right way. The coffee is sourced directly from certified Rainforest Alliance farms in Central and South America, with a big focus on farms in El Salvador. I love El Salvador. They work directly with local farmers, support sustainable farming practices, and even use recyclable and combustible packaging. Now, all of that would already make me feel good about supporting them, but honestly, the coffee itself, it's fantastic. You can really taste the quality. The beans are grown in rich volcanic soil and carefully roasted, so the flavor really comes through smooth, rich, and super aromatic. Now, whether you're somebody who loves a strong espresso to get moving in the morning, or you prefer a lighter roast while reading a good book, Afrera has something you're going to enjoy. And this is kind of beautiful. 5% of all their sales goes to charities helping conserve and preserve the great outdoors. So if you'd like to try coffee that tastes amazing and supports good people doing good work, head on over to afreracoffee.com. That's AFUERA coffee.com. And use the promo code READ to get an exclusive 15% off your order. And of course, when you use the code, you're also helping support the podcast. Great coffee and helping families grow closer together. I'd call that a pretty magical way to start your day. Hey, my friends, I have a super idea you are going to love. How about this weekend, turn your backyard cookout into a storybook celebration? Fire up the grill, crack open a few of your favorite picture books, and serve up Big Fork Brand's legendary bacon sausage. Made with nitrate-free bacon and premium pork, it's juicy, smoky, and unforgettable. Top it off with Big Fork's spicy Chicago fire sauce, and you've got a meal as bold as the characters in your favorite bedtime tale. Get 20% off your order using the promo code READ at bigforkbrands.com. That's bigforkbrands.com. Promo code READ to get 20% off, because nothing brings families together like great food, great books, and a whole lot of flavor. Big Fork Brands. Read, grill, repeat. Joining us right now from New York City, our guest is here today to celebrate his Class Pet Ghost Detective series. It's a great middle grade graphic novel series. Please welcome to the show, Akeem S. Roberts. Akeem, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Delighted to have you on. Tell us about this Ghost Pet Detective. Is this a ghost of a past class pet?
Yeah, it's about a kid named Carter, who has a class pet that he doesn't really like, and he watches it for the weekend. And then before school starts, the class pet passes away, and the whole class blames him for it. So he has to solve what happened to clear his name. And while he's doing that, he also interacts with the ghost of the dead pet, which is called Mr. Pebbles, who's a naked mole rat. And they go through and ask all the kids who's last seen the naked mole rat to figure out what happened before his ultimate demise.
You know, I think that is a nightmare that many parents have had over the years. I think I'm almost 100, so the idea of class pets didn't exist when I was in school, but my younger brothers, and I remember them coming home and saying, "Hey, can we take care of it?" And my parents were like, "No, absolutely." We had pets. I mean, we had dogs, we had an alligator, we had lizards, but to take responsibility for somebody else's pet, no, thank you.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah. So where did the inspiration for this book come from? Did you have a class pet pass away on your watch?
I didn't have a class pet pass away on my watch, but I always wanted a class pet. So I feel like this, the inspiration for this came from just a bunch of books that I read growing up, like Calvin and Hobbes, Captain Underpants. I loved those stories that had a character that got in a little bit of mischief, but it was okay. I think mischief is fun. So I wanted to play with that. And there was one time when I was a kid, on my birthday, I missed the school bus. And it was raining, very dramatic. And as I was walking in the neighborhood, because the school was in the neighborhood. So while I was walking there was this dog with me, and it walked with me almost the whole way, just very small puppy. And then once I got to the school, I turned around and the dog wasn't there. So in my head, that's my own little ghost story. So I took all of those things, and it just inspired me to tell this story about a kid who's trying to get a dog, but also has this ghostly things that happen around him.
That's cool. You know, I go for a hike most mornings, and I had something similar. I imagined that there was this butterfly, kept seeing this butterfly walking or flying alongside me. It was probably 15 different butterflies that just looked alike, but I'm like, oh, I got a buddy on the trail with me today.
No, that's probably just one butterfly. That's a good story.
So tell me, as you're creating your illustrations for your book, what comes first, the image or the story?
It's a little bit of a mix of both because when I'm like writing the graphic novel, I want the kids to also like experience some surprise while they're reading it and be engaged. So I notice sometimes when I'm like reading comics, if there's like a big cliffhanger, but it's like on the same spread, you'll kind of like reveal that to yourself. So when I'm writing the story, I write it mostly as like a thumbnail. So like really small with all of the text. And then that way I can plan like the page turns and know exactly like when I want to have a big spread for a surprise or a dramatic reveal. And then after that, because like no one can read basically my like loose handwriting chicken scratch thumbnails of being like, oh, who is this like one circle? And I'm like, oh, that circle's obviously the dad. So then I write a script from there and I like send that to my editors and then I start thumbnailing and even like as going through the rest of the process, I'm still like playing with it to see if things flow well. Maybe I'll change a dialogue here or there, but as long as my editors say it's okay.
Okay. It's almost as if you're directing and filming a movie, the way you're describing creating this graphic novel.
Yeah, I try to like find a line between like just writing a script and also like sort of like old school Marvel method where it's like it's the pages are there, but ultimately the dialogue can change to like what feels better as I like punch up the story.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to create comics?
Yes, I always wanted to create comics. Like I said, I grew up reading Calvin and Hobbes and like I loved hot take. I loved Garfield growing up. I know a lot of people, there's a lot of Garfield slander online, but as a kid in the 90s, I really loved Garfield and I like wanted to be like a comic strip artist. So like that kind of is like what my motivation was going into it. But slowly I was like, oh, comics, news and comics are going down. Maybe I should like go into animation. So then I started at a small animation startup in Brooklyn after college. And then from there, I just like eventually got reached out to via email to like illustrate a chapter book. And I was lucky enough to work on that and then have an opportunity to pitch a story to them. And that's how Class Pet Ghost Detective came to be.
Great. What a neat kind of origin story. So how many books are in the series right now and how many are you planning on?
Right now there is 2 out. Third one comes out in November, and then I am currently working on the 4th one right now. So 4 total for now. We'll hopefully get more.
So tell us a little bit more about your main character, please.
Yeah. So Carter is really just like, a good kid. He's like sort of, emotionally in tuned, is what I'm hoping for. He always tries to do the right thing, even if that means that he's getting in trouble, because that's what I wanted one of the main, like, messages to be within the story is sort of like that John Lewis quote about like getting in good trouble. So I wanted to have that for kids where it's like sometimes like you can think about if something is worth getting in trouble for, like if you knock something over, but another kid gets blamed for it, you know, like it's okay for you to get in trouble to ultimately save that kid from like having to deal with the consequences of what you did. It's sort of like little things like that where it's like, think about what is worth it and like making sure you like put people before you if like it's like made for it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But like Carter overall is just like a good kid, who's always trying to do his best and he really wants a dog. So that's his main motivation throughout the series is that his parents say if he doesn't get in any trouble, he'll get a dog at the end of the school year. So he's trying his best to get in trouble, not get in trouble and, ultimately get a brand new dog.
Boy, that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Boy, the grade that you're writing about, that middle grade age, it's a fun time in a kid's life, but I think it's also a kind of a difficult time. What do you remember being that age?
I remember loving it, but also it was very moody because my mom was in the military, so I moved around a lot. So around that age, I was just like, I had just came to the States from, my parents were stationed in Germany. So we had just came. So around that age, I was still like getting my footing down from like being in Germany to now being in the States, and like just the culture shock of that.
That must have been a big culture shock.
Yeah, it was huge.
Yeah. Did you go from, because I had an opportunity, I did educational magic shows for 35 years, and I had an opportunity to perform at a couple of base schools. Were you in base schools in Germany and then come to the States into a public school?
In Germany, I was in base schools, and then from there, my parents really wanted us to like be in the school with the other kids. They're like, be with these non-army brat kids and get a taste of like, sort of like, the culture of the community that you're in. Like, cause I feel like sometimes when you're in the bases, it's sort of like a bubble. Cause it's like, yes, you all have that experience, but you're not like the same experience of like people who grew up there. So it's like, it allowed me to be a part of the community.
Yeah. No, that must have been a huge culture shock for you.
Yeah.
What did your parents do to encourage your creativity?
What did they do? I feel like they never like said no to anything about my creativity. My dad was also an artist, so he like drew for a little bit when he was growing up. So he like always said to me that I like took what he was doing as a kid and I took it to the next level. So they always like encouraged me in that way of being like, what you're doing is great and amazing, and we love like you have a voice and a story that you're telling through these doodles. So yeah, so it was like, that was the motivation they gave me, even though I would look back at those sketches and I'd be like, oh man, I could have done I'm way better than that now. But like at that moment, I feel like that was exactly what I needed to hear. That like, cause it's basically like you compare yourself to a bunch of people online all the time where you can see a bunch of different artworks, but it's kind of like, they helped me just like not look at other kids and just like focus on my journey, which I think is very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the things that I ask authors of YA books and middle grade books is how creating this book, these characters, changed you. What about you for this series? How did creating the characters of Mr. Pebbles and Carter and drawing these illustrations, how did it change you?
I think it changed me in the way that like, I feel like I don't want to talk down to the audience, because when I thought about those characters, it made me really think about my past as a kid. And like, ultimately, I feel like a lot of things have like changed in my life, but ultimately the core of who I was stayed the same. So I feel like for me, it's like, sometimes I know there are people who like are like, oh, this is for kids or whatever. And like, I feel like that I don't have that thought process, because I feel like those kids are still the same as they're going to be as adults. Like, we have our core personality, our core traits. We can like make them better. But it's like that type of like person who you are is kind of already dialed in. Like, even when you're like a baby, I feel like there are just little moments where you can see if like someone is like a little like mischievous kid, you can like see that as like in a baby or something like that. And I think that writing for these characters and making me reflect on my childhood has helped me realize that like the kids should also be treated as like equals, and like you can learn something from kids, and it's not necessarily like that you have to like talk down to them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Speaking of talking with kids, what kind of conversations do you think families can have if they're co-reading your series together?
I think they can like have conversations about like owning up to your mistakes, and also just like learning to give things a chance. Like in this story, Carter like doesn't like Mr. Pebbles because he's a stinky mole rat, but like throughout the story, they learn to like be friends. And there's kind of that like kind of message of like, oh, they could have always been friends. Like Carter could have always liked Mr. Pebbles, but he was kind of just like in his own way being like, oh, I don't like this because it's like an ugly naked mole rat. And instead of like having the chance to like learn if he liked that or not, it's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, what kind of books did you like when you were a kid?
I loved adventure books, like, and I loved books where, like I said, with mischief, like Captain Underpants, Calvin and Hobbes. I also loved PBS Kids, Arthur, Wishbone. I loved Wishbone growing up. Also, like Magnet School Bus. I feel like stories that had like a tinge of like whimsy in the real world was kind of like the vibe that I really liked. Like Calvin and Hobbes, where it's like, oh, is Hobbes real or not? Like that kind of like thing. And I feel like even in Calvin and Hobbes, there's like all those political like messaging, and it's like, he's not talking down to the kids. So it's like, even in those, if I didn't understand it when I was a kid, I can come back to it today and be like, okay, this was the message within that joke. Yeah. And I feel like that's the kind of like stories that I want to write, where it's like, it's not talking down. Maybe you'll like, the parent will read it and get a different message, and like the kid will read it and get another message, and it's sort of like for the whole family.
Are you, as you're writing, because you remind me a lot of like Bugs Bunny, and you know, that whole thing. There's all this going on, and you know, all different levels. Are you aware of the different levels as you're creating it, or is it just you get to the end and you go, oh, look at that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting to the end and I'm like saying, oh, look at that. Or it's like, there's like a thread that I see, like, I skip past something, say like Carter with like the giving it a chance of like learning that he could like Mr. Pebbles. It's like, that's something that I found along the way. It wasn't something that I immediately wanted in the story. Like, I just wanted Carter mainly at first to like just prove that he didn't cause the death of Mr. Pebbles. And then through that, as I was working on the story, I was like, oh, this is sort of like a buddy cop adventure. And like, they can like learn to be friends throughout the story.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. I'm curious. I've had conversations with lots of authors and author illustrators and especially creators of graphic novels. Did your vision of what the illustrations would be change as you went on? I'm mentioning this because I had an illustrator on one day, and she was explaining why she drew her character in a certain way. And she said, well, I knew I was going to have to draw this like 1,500 times, and I wanted to be easy on myself. So that's why I made these choices.
Yes, there are definitely some choices I made, and I feel like I would have made even different choices. Because like for the first book that I did was a chapter book, which is called JD and the Great Barber Battle. And in that book, I really focused on like lighting, and it was like black and white. So I like wanted to make sure like that like the skin textures and like it felt like romantic and beautiful for that type of story. And then for this story, I was like, all right, I'm not doing a bunch of lighting and shading. I'm just going to keep it like very flat. And then I was like, oh, instead of like 5 fingers, they're only going to have 4, just to like keep it very simple. And then I feel like in the JD stories, I also had like smaller eyes. And then I was like, oh, in this story, I'm just going to make sure their eyes are big. So like you can read those emotions like faster and quicker as you're like reading the story. And I'm like, yeah, there's more things I could have done to make it even simpler. I'm like, oh, I wish I did that. But at the same time, I love giving myself a challenge and constantly trying to make each graphic novel better.
Yeah. Now, are you the type of artist that carries a little sketchbook around and you just sit in the mall or sit in the park and?
Yeah, I carry my tablet, and I don't sketch sometimes. I also just like write jokes in my like notes, because I do like, I'm also like a cartoonist for the New Yorker. So like whenever I like am sitting around, I'll just like write jokes, and then I'll like go back and sketch those like New Yorker jokes. And then I'll be like, all right, maybe these will get in.
Yeah. What's that like? Kind of switching between telling a story in one panel for a comic or 1 or 2 panels, and then telling a story in a graphic novel where you have, I don't know, 1,000 or 900 panels?
Yeah, I feel like with the one panel, it's kind of sort of like creating an inside joke with your reader.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like all about comedy is like doing something that's unexpected. So it's like you have to have your reader have an expectation going into that one panel comic and then being like, surprise.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm trying to think of what's a good one that I like did that's like on that. I feel like one of the first ones I sold to the New Yorker was a cat who's like looking at a mouse, and the mouse has just like moved into the apartment, and then the mouse has like his like newspaper, he's wearing his glasses, and his hand is out to the cat being like, you must be the super. So because he's like watching him. So it's like kind of like that vibe of like, I don't know, it's just like some inside joke with an audience and like trying to bring that to life in a one panel. And then with multiple panels in like a graphic novel, it's like I can go into deeper details and like create more of a vivid character versus just like a snapshot.
Yeah. Any thoughts of creating a YA graphic novel in the future?
I think I would love to create a YA graphic novel in the future. I don't know if I have quite the story yet. It could just be like maybe these kids eventually, after a couple of years, I'm like, let's tell a more adult story with like these ghost themes instead of like making them very light with animals. Maybe I'll go into like the people aspect of it.
Uh-huh.
But for now, nothing. But I would love to do one in the future.
Well, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Class Pet Ghost Detective and find out more about you.
My website at akeemteam.com. You can also find out more about me on Instagram at akeemteam, where I do some weekly panels about me and my wife, just like 4-panel strip comics about my life in Brooklyn. Yeah, I think that's it. And then you can buy the books also on like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and other book suppliers. Yeah,
and we always encourage our listeners to go to their local public library and request, even if you buy the book, go to the library and say, hey, can you get Class Pet Ghost Detective, put it on the shelves, because that really helps. It helps Akeem, but also helps the kids in your community that can't afford it.
Yes. Always go to the library if you can.
We had a great time speaking to the creator of the Class Pet Ghost Detective series, great middle grade graphic novel from our guest, Akeem S. Roberts. Akeem, thanks so much for being with us.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of Reading with Your Kids. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope you'll join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on X. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/Reading With Your Kids. And, of course, our website, it's readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Matt Ross. Please be sure to check out One River School. Also want to thank Akeem S. Roberts. Please be sure to check out his Class Pet Ghost Detective graphic novel series. I want to thank my team, Daylene Rose, Advina Lopez, Chris Doherty, Ella Badier. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the love and support and joy she brings into my life. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. But most importantly, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better, more kind, more empathetic place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. You know, you also improve your own life every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
Sometimes we feel so far apart, like we're living in different worlds. celebrate all